Good morning. So, an important update since I put my honey supers on. I did the rather long video about putting honey supers on. We had a club virtual Zoom meeting for the bee club I'm in. And towards the end of the meeting, one of the apiary inspectors, who also keeps bees, of course, had an interesting little topic about his beehives. So first of all, he mentioned that in our area, which I'm in southeastern Massachusetts, we were in period of a big flow. In other words, there was a lot of nectar out there for the bees. So he was putting multiple supers on his hive, and he had pictures. He also did express that he felt that the queen excluders, although they are controversial, as I've mentioned before, some people like them, some people don't, he felt especially important this time of year because there was more of a tendency maybe for the queen to need room to lay, so she would go up into the honey supers, and you don't want that because it makes a mess. So, and he showed a picture of his hive, which had 3 honey supers on it. And what he said his process was, it sounded like he would put the first one on, and then I don't know how much later, we'll say maybe a week, depending on if he thought the flow was continuing, he would lift that and put a newer one under it and then do the same again. So he had 2 deeps and 3 honey supers, and he did have the queen excluder. So I thought to myself, wow, I'm not sure why no one's ever really spelled that out before. So I felt it was important to maybe spell that out for people. And I said, he's right. I mean, right now, the bees are collecting like crazy. The flowers are out. The basically wild antique olive bushes are out in my area. I think he said black elm was coming up. I'm not sure if I have that in my area. But I live near a farmland and grassland, so there's plenty for the bees to eat. And I try to plant flowers that are bee friendly as well. So what I did since the last video is, number one, I did add the queen excluders to both hives, and I put a second super on each hive. So in the middle of it, I tweaked my neck, so I got delayed a little. But now here we are a couple weeks later, and I'll show you in a second. I have 2 honey supers on each, and when I did take the first one off to look, they were really heavy and they were really getting built out and filled with honey. So, I think that's important. I know everyone talks about healthy bees and inspecting your bees and making sure you don't have mites or disease, any virus in the beehive. But let's face it, you need to collect honey from your bees because it's expensive, it's a lot of work, and the point is that you're collecting honey, and also that you're able to sell local honey, hopefully, or at least give away local honey, which is beneficial for health. Allergies, I use it all the time. I definitely think it helps with my allergies and my asthma. So honey is key, and I don't think there's always enough sharing of the key to being a successful honey producer. Now, I'm not talking large scale. This is a small scale thing for most hobbyists. I have 2 hives. I've had as many as 4. 4 is a lot of work. It depends if you have another job and you're trying to do it on the side, because it takes at least an hour to do an inspection, at least for me, depending on how in-depth you go. By the time you suit up and collect your stuff and get out to the hive and start pulling it apart, I mean, you're talking an hour. So anyway, let me flip this camera around and I will show you. So here is my front hive. They're quite busy. It's still early in the morning, and you can see I have the honey queen excluder below the honey super right here. On this hive, it's a plastic queen excluder, just because I had that one, and we'll go over to the back hive here. On this one, I happen to have a metal one that I had purchased when I first started beekeeping. So you can see that below the second super down, there is the metal queen excluder. Again, they're pretty busy. So we're going to see how this works out, but I think it's important for that to be sort of shared among beekeepers, because let's face it, I mean, when you go into this, you do think you're going to at least get some honey out of it. If all 4 of these get built out, that's going to be a lot of honey. So he had 3 on each, and my dilemma at the moment is that when I put the second super on that back hive, it was pretty high, and I'm not that tall, I'm like 5'2", so it was heavy, and of course my shoulder is hurting, so that might have added to the problem, but it's above my shoulders, and thinking that you're going to lift a super full of honey above your head is pretty ridiculous. So I may have to make a step to step up onto, or get help when I do it, which would probably be the better thing. 2 hands is a lot easier to pick up any of these supers. So just keep that in mind. I like my hives kind of off the ground, because when it snows, which it does here, you don't have to worry about it getting buried in the snow. Also, you know, animals and pests are a little further away from the hives. Anyway, that's my update on the honey supers. I may add a 3rd to each of these. I will let you know. Talk to you soon.